Here we are in part 2 of chapter 8. This particular part of the chapter is a bit more complicated, talking about conversational disclosure. Self-disclosure is all about revealing yourself and your inner thoughts. It's communicating information about yourself to another person. It's a simple definition, but it often will involve disclosing information about your values, your beliefs, desires, other things that we oftentimes will kind of keep internal and oftentimes won't share with people unless they are close to us. So that's what we're talking about here when it comes to disclosure. Now, today we have an interesting phenomena that occurs. With all of the online communication that we engage in, whether it be through social media or just communicating via text to friends or via email, oftentimes we experience the desire to disclose more, or at the very least we find it easier to disclose information that's private and personal to others. Some people do this in a very public way, where you might put it out there on a Facebook post or in some rant on YouTube. But people oftentimes will disclose things that they wouldn't face to face when they're online. So this is what's known as the disinhibition effect. Disinhibition effect. It's an interesting concept, and I've talked about this with a few colleagues. It's not proven yet that this is a consistent phenomenon, but it's consistent enough that people have started to notice it and try to study the phenomenon. I have a feeling that in a few years we will have a more solid grip on this disinhibition effect, whether that's the name they end up with or not. But right now the idea is that the certain level of anonymity, more so the invisibility associated with online communication, is what diminishes the inhibitions. Makes us feel comfortable saying things that we wouldn't say otherwise. There are a lot of things that impact our self-disclosure and how much we disclose to others, whether they're close friends or perfect strangers or anywhere in between. Of course, your personality is going to influence that. If you're an introvert or an extrovert, that will impact how much you share with others. Culture will also impact how much you disclose. There are some cultures that it's the standard norm to disclose personal information, and other cultures that more or less forbid or it's taboo to share personal things with someone that's not a family member or very, very close friend. Of course, your gender also might impact that. Studies show that women will disclose more information, more personal information than men will. That's proven time and again. Depending on who you're talking to, this will also impact your level of self-disclosure. That's fairly straightforward. If it's someone you know, then you're more likely to disclose to them. If it's someone you don't know, it might also impact that. Gender also plays a role here. If the person you're talking to is of the same sex or the opposite sex, it will impact how much you disclose oftentimes. Of course, the topic of your disclosure will also vary. Some people are very comfortable talking about certain elements of their personal life and feelings, and they stay away from other things. Excuse me. And then the media, as we just discussed a moment ago with disinhibition, oftentimes sharing things online seems to be easier than sharing them face to face. There can be many rewards and dangers to self-disclosure, so we're going to go through some of those. Of course, whenever we talk through our own feelings, our own values, our own goals, all of those things, they help us get to know ourselves better. because we actually think our way through them whenever we talk through them. Sometimes it's when you write it out in a message to somebody that you really actually process what you're saying and what you're thinking and feeling. And so self disclosure actually helps you understand yourself better. Of course, it can also help to improve communication within a relationship. This is just through building trust and other things and helping understand one another within a relationship. Interesting enough, self disclosure can affect your physiological health, so your body health. Whenever we carry a lot of stress internally because of feelings that we have or things like that, it can actually cause your physical health to decline. And so whenever we disclose those internal things, sometimes it can actually help us be healthier. And then it can also increase your likability. This being because people know more about you and because you seem more genuine and empathetic when you share things. There are some dangers also to self disclosure. On the personal level, it could be that people end up knowing things about you that impact how they see you and how they interact with you. When it comes to relationships in particular, relational level of things, certain disclosures may damage a relationship. And then professional risks that we might encounter. If you tell a coworker how you feel about another coworker or a superior or something like that, they may not say anything about it until the most inopportune time, which might get you in trouble, might keep you from being able to be promoted or cost you a sale or whatever. Or they may share it with everyone else in the room. But it may also be something like disclosing a disability that you have. That if maybe someone within your company is biased toward people with disabilities, maybe then because they know you have it, then you don't get the promotion. Is that wrong? Yes. Does it occur? Absolutely. So there can be professional risks for disclosing certain things, even like that. When we disclose information, we need to think about the why. Why am I disclosing this information to this person? We also need to think about the method through which we disclose. So we want to make sure we disclose personal information out of appropriate motivation. And the example from the text was that you don't want to disclose for the intent of hurting people. Sometimes when we tell people how we feel, we only do so to make them feel bad with us, especially if we feel like it's their fault. When we disclose information, it should be to build things, to build relationships, and not to tear them down. Make sure that we disclose in the most appropriate contexts, so in the right place. You don't want to be talking about things in the wrong places at the wrong times, so consider where you are and what's going on around you. Sometimes we want to disclose gradually as well. Instead of just baring our soul and saying everything that we have to say all at once, ease into it. Make sure that the person you're talking to can handle it and is comfortable doing so. Which rolls right into this last one about disclosing without imposing burdens on others, in particular there, but also on yourself. So you don't want to share things with other people that now they're responsible for and they can't tell anybody else. There are some people that we can do that with. A spouse, a close family member, or your closest of your friends. The secret keepers in your lives. Sometimes we can do that, but other times we don't need to place that responsibility on anyone just for the sake of trying to make ourselves feel better through self-expression. A part of this whole self-disclosure thing is being willing to listen to others when they want to disclose their personal stuff to you. So when people are talking to you, you want to practice good, effective, and active listening skills, the things that we've talked about previously when it comes to interaction. Listening actively, making eye contact, nodding, doing all the nonverbal things, encouraging people. So you want to be supportive and reinforce whoever it is that's telling you these things, that it's okay to share. If they tell you one thing with an expectation that you will respond in kind, be willing to reciprocate. There are some exceptions to this as well. And then, of course, keep disclosures confidential. If someone tells you their inmost secrets, it's probably because they trust you to keep it to yourself. And I said this a moment ago, there are exceptions to one of those last things about being willing to reciprocate. Resist being pressured to self-disclose. Just because someone might expect you to turn around and tell them something similar about yourself doesn't mean that you have to. Don't be pushed into it. Be assertive in your refusal to do so. By assertive, I mean direct. If you don't want to disclose those things, don't be offensive about it, but don't be pushed into it. You can say things like, I don't feel comfortable talking about that right now, or now's not the time, I'll think about it and maybe talk to you about it later. So you can delay the decision as well. Sometimes it's best to just move on the conversation yourself. Well, we're done talking about that. How about those Cowboys? And move on to talking about another subject. Hopefully, whoever you're talking to will get the hint that you're done talking about feelings and those kinds of things, and they will move on as well.